Discover the incredible moment when a stranger's heartwarming whisper changed her life forever. The small town of Maplewood was alive with laughter and camaraderie that fateful evening at the local school's community fundraiser. But for Sarah, a determined 28-year-old single mother, it felt like she wore a heavy cloak of isolation. As she walked in, the chill of judgment wafted around, whispers about her circumstances cutting deeper than the autumn air. Balancing two jobs delivering pizzas and serving late-night diners, Sarah felt the weight of economic hardship settle firmly on her shoulders. Every dollar counted, and embarrassment hovered like a dark cloud, casting a shadow over her dreams of a better life for her young daughter, Lily. As Sarah stood by a table, picking at the cookie platter, she caught snippets of vivid stories shared by a group of veterans nearby. Tales of grit, sacrifice, and triumph tumbled effortlessly from their lips. Heat flushed her cheeks. These men and women had faced challenges and emerged victorious. What had she ever done that could possibly compare? Yet, the flicker of hope in her heart dared to ignite. Maybe, just maybe, she was stronger than the whispers that haunted her. Later that evening, as the crowd began to thin, an elderly gentleman shuffled up to her, his eyes soft yet intense. "You've got a spirit that shines, even on the darkest days," he said. His voice was warm, the kind that could soothe any anxiety. In that fleeting moment, his words wrapped around her like a comforting blanket, pushing away the fog of doubt that clung to her thoughts. "You're more than your circumstances," he whispered, "never forget that." Tears welled in her eyes as she felt the cool grip of hopelessness begin to loosen. She had fought so hard, and this kind stranger reminded her that her struggles weren't in vain, but her determination met fierce resistance. The judgment of others made it hard for her to mend ties with her own family, who couldn't grasp the uphill battle she fought daily. To her surprise, she found solace in her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Thompson. With her silver hair and sparkling eyes, Mrs. Thompson became a surrogate grandmother to Lily. Together, they turned Sarah's cramped little house into a haven, overflowing with laughter, warmth, and the aroma of fresh cookies. Just when Sarah felt she might find her footing, an unexpected public confrontation at the diner left her shaky and reeling. The barbs of prejudice were exposed, and her heart sank at the reality of the ugliness lurking beneath the surface. As the town gathered for a pivotal meeting that night, Sarah felt the heavy silence of judgment around her, a suffocating shroud. She could hear the small murmurs, hear them whisper about her, hear the doubt in their voices. It made her palms sweat as she gripped the microphone, her heart pounding in her chest. Would they hear her? Would they even care to listen? Would they empathize or remain trapped in their long-held prejudices? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With a steely determination, Sarah lifted her voice, pouring her heart out. What began as a quaking whisper soon transformed into a powerful proclamation of resilience. The initial silence began to crack, replaced by a stirring of compassion. For the first time, the townsfolk seemed to see her not the single mother struggling to get by, but a relentless fighter, deserving of respect, understanding, and a place in this community. Standing there, sparking connection in a divided town, one question loomed: would her courage foster understanding and compassion, or would it be met with disdain, thwarted hope hanging heavy in the air? The room felt alive with tension as Sarah's words washed over the audience, each sentence a delicate thread weaving connections among the listeners. Faces turned toward her, some curious, others skeptical. She glanced at Mrs. Thompson, who sat in the front row, her eyes gleaming with encouragement. It was as if she were telling Sarah, "Go on, dear, speak your truth." With each passing heartbeat, Sarah felt the weight of her fears lifting. "I am a single mother, yes," she began, trying to meet the gazes of the townsfolk one by one. "But I'm also someone who fights for a better future. For my daughter, for myself. I've stumbled, I've struggled, and I've fallen. But that's not all I am." It was liberating, speaking candidly, sharing the rawness of her journey, the murmurs that had once draped her in their cold grip began to change. A few people in the back nodded slowly, appearing to absorb her words. I work hard. I hustle every day to provide for Lily, to ensure she has a life filled with love and hope. She felt a swell of courage course through her. But I can't do it alone. We, in this town, we have to lift each other up. I deserve support just like anyone else, like the veterans you admire so dearly. The weighty silence fractured further, replaced by sympathetic sighs and whispers of contemplation. Each word spilled forth, a growing fire ignited by Sarah's vulnerability. Memories flashed in her mind, nights spent working 2 jobs, Lily's giggles echoing through their modest home, the poignant moments with Mrs. Thompson as they baked together. For a brief moment, a little girl in a floral dress clutched her mother's hand and whispered something, causing her mother to absorb her with a look of compassion. Sarah's heart skipped. Was it possible? Had her words resonated enough to spur even a small connection? Yet, just as she felt a flicker of hope, a familiar voice rang out from the edge of the room. But you made choices, didn't you? It sneered, cutting through the warmth like ice. Why should we help someone who got herself into this mess? The air dropped to a chilling hush once again, all eyes darting toward the source of the comment. The voice belonged to Jim Warner, a long-standing member of the school board, his brow furrowed, arms crossed defiantly. The unease thickened like fog, but Sarah took a deep breath. I have made choices, but those choices aren't who I am. They don't define me. I'm still working to improve, to learn, and grow just like everyone else here. Her own heartbeat thundered in her ears, but she pressed on. As the minutes passed, murmurs of support began to rise, as if the tide were turning. Yet doubt still lingered in the air. She saw Jim shaking his head, disbelief written across his face. Would he write her off entirely? Would the others follow suit? Suddenly, from the back of the room, an unexpected voice broke through. It was a young woman, her arm raised with conviction. I know how hard it is. I've been there too. Sarah's right, we should be supporting one another, not tearing each other down. There were gasps and mumbles of agreement, a small spark of solidarity igniting, but as the tide seemed to shift, a powerful question loomed. A storm of uncertainty bubbled beneath the surface. Could Sarah's moment of strength truly change the minds of those who had judged her? Or would the battle against prejudice be far more grueling than she had anticipated? All eyes were on her, awaiting the next words to grace her lips. What would she say now, with so much at stake? Would her bravery inspire others to join her cause, or would she stand alone on this fragile ground? With the room holding its breath, Sarah's eyes darted to the faces around her. There were those who still wore skepticism like a cloak, but now, a few expressions had softened. She spotted a young man in the second row, nervously gripping the edge of his seat, as if willing himself to rise from the depths of his own doubt. Listen, she said, her voice steady but laced with urgency. I know some of you might think my struggles are self-imposed. But I want you to see beyond that, beyond what you perceive. What if we all showcased our struggles instead of hiding them? We wouldn't be alone, would we? The warmth of her plea wrapped around the crowd, stirring something deeper within them. She noticed Mrs. Thompson nodding, her eyes brimmed with empathy. Sarah took a step forward, her heart racing, emboldened by the ripple of connection she felt. There are parents in this room, parents who are just trying to make ends meet. She pointed to the families scattered throughout. And there are children, innocent and full of hope, who deserve to feel supported, to know that their community cares. We can create that, together. A man near the back whispered to his partner, the weight of his voice apparent even from afar. She's right, we all had our battles, he said, and several others nodded in agreement. That's it. Sarah felt a surge of energy crash through her. We all carry our scars, whether they're visible or hidden under smiles. Let us share those scars. Let us build bridges instead of walls. The air began to shift, laughter coming from a woman who shared her own stories of struggle and resilience, her voice lifting among the murmurs, blossoming into a chorus of shared experiences. Yet, in contrast, Jim's harsh demeanor didn't waver. But what happens when we just give out handouts? he shouted. Isn't that encouraging more poor decisions? The crowd's energy dimmed for a moment, a weight of responsibility settling on Sarah's shoulders. She thought of her long nights, the sacrifices she made for Lily, and all the moments of joy that made their life rich despite the struggles. Jim, these aren't handouts, they're investments in our community. When we support one another, we uplift everyone. Isn't that worth it? A tense silence enveloped the room as his shoulders tensed, but then something magical began to unfold. A woman stood up, wiping away tears. My son is scared to bring friends home because he worries about our situation. I don't want him to feel alone. As her words hung in the air, Sarah felt a wave of fierce unity ripple through the crowd. More people began to rise, sharing their own fears, their own battles with vulnerability and love. The room, once so divided, felt like a tapestry of shared humanity. Just then, from the entrance, the heavy double doors creaked open. A figure stepped inside, silhouetted against the light streaming in. It was Ethan, someone Sarah hadn't seen in years. He looked different. Older. Wiser. Is this a town meeting I've missed? He asked, a grin tugging at his lips, but as his gaze landed on Sarah, the smile faltered. The room turned, a wave of startled faces colliding against the momentum of newfound solidarity. What was he doing here? Why now? Had he returned to judge her once again, or to offer support? Sarah's heart raced with uncertainty as the air buzzed with questions. What would his presence mean for her and her fight for acceptance? And would it push away the progress she'd just begun to forge? As Sarah locked eyes with Ethan, 1,000 emotions whirled within her. This was a moment she had not anticipated. What would she decide to say? Would she embrace the vulnerability or cast it aside? Ethan took a hesitant step forward, the light illuminating the lines etched on his face. Time had carved out new features, maturity mixed with untold stories. His eyes held a glimmer of recognition but also uncertainty, which made Sarah's pulse race all the more. Did he truly have any idea of what was happening here? Ethan, she managed, her voice a fragile whisper caught in her throat. It's been a long time. His expression shifted, and the warmth of his grin returned reluctantly. Yeah, it has. He glanced around the room, taking in the energy that had filled the space. Seems like a big moment for all of us. Around them, the murmurs rose and fell like the tide, the crowd still grappling with their own emotions. Sarah could feel their gazes darting between her and Ethan, confused knots tightening in her stomach. Nerves turned into fire, she was unsure if his presence would ignite or extinguish the flicker of hope she had sparked. Can you believe it? A voice rang out from the back. We're finally all talking about what really matters. Heads nodded, tension still lingering but slowly untangling in the face of shared vulnerability. As if sensing the fragile moment, Sarah inhaled deeply, then took a step toward Ethan, her heart calling her to bridge the gap. Ethan, you know what we're trying to do here. You remember how hard it was? The days felt endless. But together, we can change that. He looked at her, an intensity burning in his gaze. I do remember. And I'll admit, I was skeptical at first. But something's different. I can feel it. For just a second, Sarah's heart soared. Was the tension that had once defined their relationship in that long-ago past starting to lift? A few people had shifted closer, creating a small audience, and Sarah continued, emboldened by their presence. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about our families, friends, our kids. She pointed again to the young man who hadn't moved from his seat. We're all in this together. We can't keep pretending everything's fine when it's not. Ethan nodded slowly, and the air felt electric. He took one more step forward. I've made mistakes, Sarah. Mistakes that seeped into the lives around me. I left town thinking it was for the best, but perhaps I was only running away. Gasps rippled through the audience, surprise dancing on their expressions. Sarah's heart softened. Here was the honesty she hadn't expected, raw and sincere. Maybe it is time, he added, his voice steadying, for me to step up. The crowd exhaled, the moment becoming palpable as fists unclenched and shoulders relaxed. People started speaking again, sharing their own stories of courage, some even voicing their own fears about what it meant to expose their vulnerabilities. "I was once scared to face my past," one older woman said, raising her voice above the rest. "But here I am, and I'm willing to help if that means we can bring light to others." Applause broke out as faces lit up, hope scattered among them like confetti. Sarah couldn't believe the shift unfolding in front of her. But then, just as joy began to settle in, a shadow flickered over Ethan's face. "However," he said, looking towards Sarah intently, "I still have so many unanswered questions. What have you been through? What happened after I left?" A hush fell again, the room charged with anticipation. This was the moment. Would she share her deepest fears or keep her heart guarded? The pressure pressed on her chest, and she could feel the weight of every person in the room waiting for her words. Would this revelation deepen their connection or shatter it into pieces? As Sarah prepared to speak, a new crack in the foundation of their reunion began to form. Did she even know how to find her voice again when everything felt so raw? What would she tell Ethan, and how would it change everything she had fought for? Sarah took a deep breath, the air thick with unspoken words. She felt like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, staring down into an abyss of memories and emotions. Could she really dive into the depths of her past with Ethan standing there? He had once been a part of her life, a part she had tried to compartmentalize, to forget in the years since he left. The crowd was still, their collective breath held as though they could sense the weight of this moment, filled with both fear and hope. Ethan's eyes, intense and unwavering, anchored her. After you left, everything felt like it shattered," she began, her voice trembling. "I became someone else. I had to be strong for my mom, for everyone around me. I was lost but tried to find a way through it." "I can't even imagine," Ethan replied softly, the warmth in his voice coaxing her onward. "I thought I was okay," she continued, "but the truth is, I wasn't. I spent years pretending. There were nights I lay awake, wondering what could have been if you hadn't gone, if we hadn't let each other go." Somewhere in the crowd, she noticed a mother holding her daughter's hand tightly, the young girl's eyes wide with understanding. "Life doesn't just hand you the tools to cope. I fell into dark days. I didn't know how to reach out, how to ask for help." She paused, the vulnerability time had etched onto her heart glaring in the light. "I felt I was carrying the weight of 1,000 regrets." It was Ethan's turn to step closer, the electric air crackling between them. "You're sharing this with me now," he said, sincerity woven deeply into his voice. "Maybe it's time we face it together. We can't change the past, but maybe we can change what's ahead." Could they? The idea of transforming their pain into a shared strength felt thrilling and terrifying. Hope lit up in Sarah's chest like the first rays of dawn. She could help others through their struggles just as they had navigated theirs. Then, a voice cut through her thoughts, a deeper tone that belonged to someone familiar yet distant. "Do you really think it's that easy? You can't just glue everything back together and expect it to hold," spoke Mark, a bitter voice from the back. The crowd shifted uneasily, eyes darted between Mark and the duo at the front. His challenge hung in the air like fog, suffocating yet alive with confrontation. "This isn't about easy, Mark," Sarah shot back, her voice rising with fire ignited by the doubts she had carried for so long. "This is about trying. We owe it to ourselves to at least try and fix what we can." Gasps filled the room, a wall of trepidation and support pulsing together. Ethan remained silent, observing Sarah, a half-smile playing on his lips, admiration swelling in his chest. "I'm living proof that facing it is the first step," Sarah pressed on. "We can turn our pain into purpose. It starts here, and it starts now. For everyone." With warmth replacing the previous coolness that had cocooned the atmosphere, the crowd began responding, sharing stories of heartache and healing. The air vibrated, not just with pain, but with the refreshing essence of solidarity and resilience. But as their voices rose, Sarah caught a glimpse of Ethan, his earlier confidence wavering. Something unreadable flickered in his eyes. "You really believe that?" he asked, uncertainty creeping back into his tone. Yes. I do, she affirmed, though deep down, fear gnawed at her determination. What if this moment collapsed rather than soared? As she prepared to plunge deeper into their shared history, a thought crept into her mind. Could they both let go of their past, or would old wounds fester and consume what they hoped to rebuild? And somewhere behind her, she heard the faint sound of footsteps approaching, each one carrying a weight of their own. An unexpected visitor? The question pulled her focus away from Ethan and raised the tension once more. What could this new reveal mean for their fragile union? Would it be a chance to understand and heal, or just another blow that threatened to sever their connection for good? The footsteps grew louder, echoing like a drumbeat in Sarah's chest. She turned slightly, catching a glimpse of an unfamiliar figure stepping through the crowd. It was a woman, her dark hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, a hesitant look on her face as she drew nearer. Sarah felt a rush of curiosity mixed with anxiety. Who is that? She thought, half stumbling over her words while still trying to hold on to the momentum she'd built with the crowd. The woman's expression was soft, but there was something about the way she held herself that suggested a weighty burden. Excuse me, the stranger said, her voice barely lifting above the murmur in the room. I need to say something. The crowd parted slightly for her, surprise rippling through the air. Sarah's heartbeat quickened. She felt like a juggler, balancing the unfolding of her own emotions with her growing curiosity about this woman. Hi, I'm Miriam, the woman continued, taking a breath as she steadied herself. I just wanted to share something that might help. Ethan turned to Sarah, eyebrows raised in an unspoken question. Would this revelation derail her moment, or perhaps even illuminate it further? Sarah looked back at Miriam, willing her to speak directly to the audience's ache for connection. I've been listening to all of you, Miriam said, her gaze sweeping across the crowd. And what Sarah said, it resonated with me as well. My own life fell apart a few years ago. I lost someone dear, just like many of you. Gasps of recognition swept through the crowd, a collective understanding settling like a soft blanket. Sarah felt a strange kinship with this stranger. They were both trying to piece together the fragmented parts of themselves, standing in the same broken place. I spent so much time thinking I had to carry this weight alone, that reaching out was a weakness. But it's been the opposite, Miriam continued, her voice stronger now. When I finally opened up, I found an army of support waiting to lift me. You have no idea how many hearts you touched just by being here tonight. The room held its breath as Miriam searched each face in the crowd. There was a deep connection in her words, a truth that flickered brightly. It felt electric, igniting something in Sarah. Maybe this night was more than just a remembrance of past pain, it was also a call to action. Sarah, your courage is giving other people the strength to share their stories too, Miriam said directly to her, a warm smile brightening her features. Let us show them that while the past can shape us, it doesn't have to define us. With the energy lifting in the room, it felt like a collective nod to the future. Sarah glanced at Ethan, who looked both surprised and proud. There was no turning back now, they had to push forward together. As the crowd responded, voices rose in support and encouragement. Tears of relief and hope glistened in many eyes, a tangible shift in the atmosphere as people began sharing their own narratives, their struggles, and small victories. But amidst the wave of emotion and support, Sarah felt the pang of fear still lurking beneath the surface. Would this new momentum help fortify the bridge between her and Ethan, or would it tear them apart as old ghosts rose to the surface? Before she could take that plunge, a sudden commotion broke out as someone else pushed through the crowd, shouting. And just like that, the air thickened again with tension and uncertainty. Stop. You need to hear me. The crowd fell silent, eyes widening at the entrance of another figure. Who was this person, and what did they have to say? In a room filled with hopeful connection, everything now teetered on the edge of chaos. What truth could this new voice bring, and would it wash away the fragile hope Sarah had just begun to nurture? The crowd shifted, a wave of confusion radiating from the stranger's voice. Sarah's heart raced again, this time with a blend of anxiety and curiosity. The newcomer, a tall figure with an unruly mop of hair, stood there, stress etched into every feature. His eyes darted, wild and frantic. "Listen!" he shouted, his voice cracking with urgency. "You don't know what you're doing. Sarah, I need you to know something important." The crowd remained still, tension pulling at everyone's nerves. Sarah blinked, trying to process this unexpected interruption. The room, moments ago thick with solidarity, now buzzed with whispers and sidelong glances. Was this person someone from her past? A ghost she thought she'd buried? "Who are you?" she managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper, yet it cut through the mounting confusion. "I'm Jonah," he said, taking a few steps forward. "I knew you." His eyes glistened with unshed tears, and there was a desperation in his gaze that pulled at Sarah's heart. "I was there when everything fell apart. I thought you might want to know the truth." The audience shifted again, intrigued. A ripple of discomfort moved through the group as they sensed the incoming storm. Sarah felt trapped between fear and a strange pull of nostalgia. Memories buried deep clawed at her mind, but she couldn't place Jonah's face. Why did it feel like she should know him? "Sarah, you have no idea what you mean to so many of us," he continued, his voice softer now. "After everything that happened, I never stopped thinking about you. Not a day went by." With every word he spoke, the tension in the room thickened. It was as if he was peeling back layers of time, exposing wounds that had yet to heal. Sarah felt Ethan tense beside her, his body turning into a sturdy wall, ready to shield her. "What do you mean? What happened?" she finally asked, feeling vulnerable in the spotlight but needing answers. "I lost touch with everyone. I didn't know. I didn't know you needed help. I should have reached out sooner. I just didn't know if I had the right to." Jonah stumbled verbally, his gaze breaking for a moment as he struggled to articulate the heaviness of his thoughts. Snippets of shared laughter or painful silences flooded back to Sarah, incomplete fragments she couldn't quite grasp. "Why are you telling me this now?" she pressed again, her heart caught in a vice. His presence ignited questions she thought she had put to rest, emotions long dulled by time now simmered beneath the surface. "Because Miriam is right," he whispered fiercely, locking eyes with her. "The only way to move forward is to face what we've lost. That's where we find the strength to go on. I abandoned that idea long ago, but seeing you here it reminded me how wrong I was." The collective breath of the crowd seemed to draw in, waiting for her response. Every pair of eyes was now glued to Sarah, the air charged with anticipation. Ethan stiffened next to her, uncertainty shadowing his expression as anger simmered in the pit of his stomach. But Sarah felt torn, yearning to unravel the truth he brought with him, even if it meant facing her own painful memories. "Why now?" she asked once more, softer yet, now on the verge of breaking. Suddenly, the room shifted. Jonah took another step forward, almost hesitant, as if he feared the weight of her judgment. "Because I'm sorry, Sarah. I didn't fight for you when I should have. I let you down, and I can't live with that anymore." The air crackled with emotion, and Sarah could feel her heart race as she wrestled with the decision ahead of her. Could this moment of confession heal old wounds, or would it rip them open wide again? As Jonah's words hung in the air, a silence fell over the crowd, holding all of their collective scars, waiting for Sarah's next move. Would she embrace the past or bury it forever? And how would it shape her future with Ethan? In that pivotal second, everything felt up for grabs, and one choice would pave the way for all that was to come. The tension in the air felt like a thick blanket, smothering and electric. Sarah's thoughts tangled as she stared at Jonah, searching his eyes for answers. What had he witnessed? What truth did he carry that could change everything for her? The murmurs from the crowd faded into a dull roar in her ears. Ethan stepped closer, his jaw locked tight, silently urging her to dismiss Jonah and protect the fragile peace they had built. Yet, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that Jonah was offering her something deeper, an invitation to confront the past she'd fought so hard to bury. "Jonah," she breathed, her heart hammering in her chest. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to know that it's okay to feel lost. It's okay to admit that you're struggling," he implored, his voice barely a whisper now. His vulnerability, raw and genuine, drew her in like a magnet. But why now? She repeated the question, her once steadfast walls beginning to crack. After all this time? Jonah stepped back, as if the words were too heavy to bear. Because I've spent years haunted by our past. I kept thinking it was too late, that I was too late to save you from the fallout. The crowd shifted, an organism of shared empathy. Some faces softened, while others mirrored Ethan's protective stance. Fallout? Sarah echoed, feeling the thread of old memories tugging at her heart. Shadows of shared laughter, broken dreams, and nights filled with comforting silence flickered in her mind. She remembered something important, just out of reach. Yes, Jonah continued, eyes glowing with urgency. There was blame flying around, choices made in fear and pain. You felt abandoned by me, by everyone. Sarah swallowed hard, emotions rising like a tidal wave. And you thought that showing up after all this time would make it better? Jonah flinched but held her gaze. I thought maybe I could help you understand you were never alone. That no matter where you went you mattered. Heat flooded her cheeks. I don't need your pity. It's not pity, he said, passion igniting in his tone. It's truth. I was there, Sarah. I saw your struggle, and I was too scared to jump in and get messy with you, to help fight those battles. A wave of silence rolled through the crowd. The air felt charged with electricity, as if they were all leaning in, waiting for the spark that would ignite the fire. And where were you when I needed you? Sarah shot back, the hurt rising within her like a phoenix. You vanished. I know, Jonah admitted, pain flashing across his face. And I hate myself for it. But I couldn't let my regrets chain you any longer. Regrets? She sneered, her heart torn. Regrets don't change anything. Maybe not, Jonah said, stepping closer, the crowd tightening around him, hanging on every word. But they can teach us. If we allow ourselves to learn, to forgive, to heal. A tear escaped Sarah's eye, betrayal and longing coursing through her like fire. Everything was shifting, her world tilting on its axis again. What if he was right? What if this could be an opportunity for solace, a way to finally let go of the burdens that weighed her down? Silence reigned again, and Sarah felt the eyes of the crowd like a gentle yet unyielding pressure. Ethan's tension beside her was palpable, like a wall threatening to crack. Sarah, Jonah said, voice steady now. Will you give yourself a chance to face what's inside you? To forgive the past, to reclaim who you are? A whirlwind of feelings swirled in her chest. Could she actually do that? Did she have the strength to confront her past? To face not only Jonah but also the ghosts lingering in the corners of her mind? As uncertainty wrapped around her, she opened her mouth to speak, but the moment of truth hung like a teetering pendulum above them, waiting for her choice. What would she say? Would she walk into the light, or retreat into the shadows once more? The room held its breath, each soul waiting for her answer, the power of the moment weighing heavily on her shoulders. Would she let the past cage her, or would she take a leap of faith into the unknown? The crowd did not merely watch, they felt her struggle, sharing in the weight of her decision, waiting for the spark that could either light the way or plunge them all into darkness. Sarah's breath hitched as the silence extended, stretching thin like a taut string ready to snap. She could feel the weight of the crowd's gaze, their collective hopes pooling around her like shimmering water. It was like she stood at a precipice, the depths of her uncertainty below, taunting her with whispers of fear and regret. Her heart raced, and she caught a glimpse of Ethan beside her. His face was a mix of concern and disbelief. He wanted her to turn away, to choose comfort over confrontation. But was comfort truly what she needed anymore? Sarah, Jonah urged again, his voice breaking through the tension, infused with a familiar warmth she had missed. Don't let your past dictate your future. Confessing your truth can be the first step to freedom. He stepped closer, his expression earnest and open, as if he were offering her not just peace, but a chance to reclaim the pieces of herself she had allowed to scatter in the winds of hurt. Freedom, she whispered, testing the word on her tongue. Her past had bound her like chains, each experience weighing heavily on her spirit. But what if, just for a moment, she could imagine breaking free. What if she dared to look inward, to unearth the pains that hid in dark corners of her heart? Before she could think too deeply, she spoke. I don't know if I can forgive you or myself. As those words escaped her lips, it felt like a release, a small crack in the fortress she had built. You don't have to do it all at once, he replied, a flicker of hope igniting in his gaze. Just take one step. Small steps can lead to something beautiful. Sarah felt her chest constricting with emotions she had bottled up for so long. Anger, longing, love all tangled together like an old, tattered tapestry. It had been etched into her very being, each thread a reminder of what was lost. But could she unravel it? Could she allow her heart to feel again? Ethan shifted beside her, a silent plea for her to reconsider, to retreat into the safety they had built together. The world outside, the quiet storm brewing within her, felt distant. I didn't just vanish, Sarah. I ran, Jonah confessed, his voice trembling. I didn't know how to face it. I was paralyzed by my own fears, fear of hurting you more, fear of facing the truth of my own mistakes. She met his gaze, the pain in his eyes mirroring her own grief. Is that what you think this is about? Just you? He opened his mouth to respond, but the words faded as he absorbed her question. Instead, they shared a moment of silence that spoke volumes, an unspoken acknowledgement of burdens both had carried far too long. Sarah's heart thudded, her mind racing through a convoluted maze of what-ifs and maybes. What if they could rewrite their story? A chance for healing, not just for herself but for Jonah too. She thought about the years lost, the laughter turned to echoes, the friendship left to wither. What if I try? Her voice was barely audible, a hesitant whisper that trembled with vulnerability. Then I'll be right here, every step of the way, Jonah promised, a resolute warmth suffusing his words. The sincerity in his voice reached into her heart, stirring something deeply buried, but in the back of her mind, the fear still lingered. What if confronting this past opened doors better left shut? What if the healing she yearned for was nothing more than a fantasy? As she stood there, poised on the brink of choice, a gust of wind swept through the crowd, ruffling her hair and brushing against her cheeks. The world outside beckoned, vibrant and picturesque, while the moment seemed to stretch on infinitely, gravity tethering her to the ground. Sarah? Jonah called softly, drawing her back to the reality at hand. Whatever you choose, know that this is your journey. I won't rush you. I will wait. Something shifted within her, then a whisper of courage born from the desire to seek clarity amid confusion. She felt the unease begin to ebb, just a little. Standing before Jonah, the crowd melting away, she took a breath and prepared for her next words. Would they be the ones that sparkled with hope or echoed with regret? The moment felt monumental, and she could sense a pivotal shift on the horizon, one that promised to change everything she thought she knew, forever. Would she finally let go of the chains that held her captive, or would the past continue to lurk just out of reach, shrouded in darkness? With her heart racing, she opened her mouth once more, ready to speak the truth she both dreaded and craved. What would she reveal, and how would it shape her future? The silence in the room stretched out, taut like a bowstring, as Sarah stood on the precipice of her emotions. Jonah's presence carried the weight of her past, but now it became a conduit for her future. She could feel the tension and uncertainty thick in the air, swirling around them, but so was something else, possibility. I don't want to feel lost anymore, she finally admitted, her voice steady yet fragile. I'm tired of carrying the burdens of regret. It's exhausting. Her chest heaved with the depth of her confession. The crowd hung on every word, their shared struggles undulating through the room like a gentle tide. With every ounce of courage she could muster, Sarah continued, I need to let go. I need to forgive you, Jonah, and I need to forgive myself. The words tumbled out, raw and unfiltered. I'm not the same person I was when you left. I've changed. I have grown. Jonah's eyes glimmered, a mix of hope and sorrow, and he nodded, a silent agreement in the shared realization of how much they had both endured. A ripple of supportive murmurs spread through the crowd, encouraging her to go on. And I want to choose a new path. One with understanding and connection, not judgment. Isn't that what we all want? She glanced around, making eye contact with familiar faces now softened with empathy. They were here, ready to support one another. They were no longer just townsfolk judging her but a community yearning for unity. Ethan shifted beside her, his tension palpable. He stood by, conflicted yet present, like a steady anchor. This town, we all have our fights. Maybe we can turn our struggles into something meaningful, Sarah urged, her voice rising with momentum. Jonah took a step closer, his expression earnest. Sarah, it's okay to release the past. We can heal together. Just like all of you can. He gestured toward the crowd, acknowledging their struggles. You don't have to face life's battles alone. Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks as vulnerability began to ease the knots tied in her heart. The room felt electric, a network of souls illuminated by her truth and Jonah's presence. Someone in the front row spoke up, their voice trembling with emotion. I've been scared to change, scared to acknowledge my failures, they said, catalyzing a collective sigh of understanding. But maybe it's about sharing the weight. One by one, people began to share their own stories of loss, heartbreak, and the hope of moving forward. Each voice added a thread to the tapestry. Sarah was weaving a celebration of resilience, connection, and community. As the atmosphere shifted, Sarah felt the warmth of support wrap around her, pushing doubt to the sidelines. Together, we can lift one another up, she said, her heart infused with passion. We can make Maplewood a home for everyone, a haven filled with kindness. The words erupted from her, unstoppable now, lighting fires of resolve in the hearts of those present. With each story shared, with every honest confession, she noticed Ethan relaxing beside her, his fierce gaze softening. Maybe, just maybe, he was beginning to understand the strength in sharing struggles. And as for love? She continued, turning toward Jonah. It has its scars, but that doesn't mean it's not worthwhile. We can try again, maybe as friends or more. Her heart flickered with hope that bubbled to the surface, buoyed by the swell of support around them. A murmur ran through the crowd, a ripple of interest and intrigue. The warmth enveloped her, like a comforting embrace against the cold of judgment she had once felt. Jonah's smile broke through, crystalline and bright, reflecting the shared understanding of resilience. I do like that, he replied, sincerity etched into his voice. It was an invitation, a promise to walk this journey together, no longer unsure and unanchored but ready to embrace the uncertainty of the future. As voices continued rising, a chorus of understanding, Sarah took a deep breath, looking around at the faces she once feared. They were no longer her judges, they were her community, her family. They had acknowledged the struggles not just as obstacles, but as bonds to be shared and lifted together. In that moment, she understood truly what the kind stranger's warm words had meant. She was more than her circumstances. She was a beacon, a voice of change in Maplewood, and so were all the others stepping forward to share their truths. I don't know what lies ahead, she said, her voice full of gratitude and hope. But I know I'll take it one step at a time. With that, Sarah stepped back, allowing the crowd to spill forward, hearts open and arms embraced. The night transitioned from hardship to harmony, the echoes of laughter crossing the air as connections revived. With the weight of doubt lifting, she felt light, beaming with a radiant smile that reflected in the eyes of everyone around her. She lifted her gaze to Ethan, who looked at her with admiration and warmth, a silent understanding passing between them that this transformative moment would forever change their lives. As the laughter and stories crescendoed, Sarah knew in her heart she had finally found her voice, as well as a place in a community ready to embrace its imperfections together. It was a new chapter, filled with promise and possibility, a legacy she would build, not just for herself, but for her daughter, and for all the souls who walked that journey beside her. And now, let us spread this inspiration. You need to subscribe now to catch upcoming stories that can ignite change in your life and the lives of others. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover hope. Comment below your feelings about this ending and what it means to you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, we can build a brighter future.